All right, BradCooney.com in association with HCN Networks is absolutely honored to have on board one of my favorite The Voice contestants, Amy Vachal. Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Definitely an honor to have you on board. All right, I've been watching the show a few seasons now, and, one of the things that I really, really like about you is you have that throwback, very unique throwback sound that's different, separates you from a lot of the others. Talk a little bit about the style of singing you bring to the show.
Well, you bring up this throwback feel. I've always, from a young age, have been really attracted to the era of big band and swing and the crooners of that golden age of music. And I think it was actually encouraged by my parents. They started taking ballroom dance classes when I was young, and they would always be dancing in the living room, and we just had tons of albums of like Frank Sinatra and all sorts of big band and swing, and so I always just had that kind of embedded in who I was growing up, and it's definitely influenced my sound even now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there advantages, do you feel, of having that style during the competition, and is there any disadvantages, do you think?
It's a good question. It's funny. It's such an old style, but the way I see it, the way I look at music in general, is just that a good song is a good song. It doesn't matter when it's from or who sings it. And, that's what I've been trying to dissect every time I listen to a song, today or, 50 years ago. I try to listen for the integrity of the melody and the lyric, and I think especially that time of music, like I said, I think it was a golden age of music. People were just so prolific in writing these simple but pretty profound and relatable tunes that I think can still make an impact today. We all have hearts, and I think the whole point of singing a song to anyone is to touch people's hearts. So I think it's totally relevant even today. It's just it hasn't quite been done as much recently.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so when you did the blind audition, you selected the legendary Pharrell Williams to be your coach, and you've since switched coaches. But first, talk about the experience working with Pharrell, such an accomplished producer and singer, and he's such a kind man and so talented. Talk about that.
Yeah, everyone who knows Pharrell, and especially everyone who's met Pharrell, knows exactly what you said, how kind he is, and beyond that, he just exudes this certain kind of wisdom that, it doesn't matter if he's your coach or if he's your friend. I feel like you're just always going to learn something from him every time you walk into a room with him, and it's been amazing just, the short time that I had to spend with him. I feel like I've grown so much just from getting to get his feedback on, my style and how I approach, specific songs. But it's funny, each of the coaches have their own style. To me, Pharrell is kind of like, he's more like a Mr. Miyagi, like in the Karate Kid, and switching to Adam, he kind of reminds me of Mickey from Rocky. I don't know. I just associate everyone having a different style of coaching, and it's just a different style. It doesn't make anyone better or worse. So I find I feel very lucky to be able to have worked with Pharrell, and now I get to work with Adam, and I'm so excited to see, where the road leads.
Yeah, I'm glad I saw both of those movies because I get what you're saying. I really, yeah, definitely. Those are great comparisons. All right, so let's move on to when you did the battle rounds. You had to go up against Jubal and Armanda. Both are terrific singers, by the way.
Yeah.
How challenging was that for you to go up against two vocalists, though?
You know, that was quite a challenge. I'm so new to this whole, vocal competition, experience. So walking in, I didn't really get to process it immediately. So my immediate reaction was, wow, these are two amazing singers, and I can't wait to do a duet with them. And they are completely amazing, and I really love them. We've become really good friends. But, starting to work on the song, I started to come across all these challenges of, feeling like I couldn't keep up vocally with them. They're two incredible powerhouse singers that have such a unique sound, and I know I have a unique sound too, but we're so different on top of the fact that we tend to have different decibel comforts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So it was definitely a challenge, and I'm so glad that I was challenged in that way, because I definitely feel like I had to fight through it, and I feel like I've come out stronger on the other side. It's always it's a little, honestly, at the end of it, it was very bittersweet, I think, for everyone who participated in that round, just because you're working so closely with artists that you respect so much, and they've also become your friends, and at the same time you both just want to stay in the competition, and so it's this, you just faced with these mix of emotions. So at the end of that, while it was, the verdict turned out to come in my favor, it was pretty bittersweet, but I'm just so glad that we were able to make something that is lasting, and it lives on iTunes now, and I'm really proud of what we made together.
Yep, and everybody listening needs to go to iTunes and purchase your music and purchase everybody's music on The Voice, because it's such good stuff. I encourage everybody to do that. I was glad that the expert judges were there to see and to judge that performance, because this is no knock at the fans, but the fans love music, and I think sometimes some fans may get swayed by, like you were talking about decibel levels before, and different vocal ranges, and I was glad that the coach, when they saw your performance against them too, was able to separate that. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was a huge part of the battle.
Hello.